You are listening to the Home Service Business Success Show. We have been accelerating the path of success for home service companies since 2011.
We're in the attention economy now, right? Where there's attention, there will be ads.
If you're not the expert, you better make sure you find the expert.
The root of ignorance is to ignore.
First question is, I'm going to ask you, Kenny, do you truly believe in magic?
Let's do a double axle backflip and let's go head first right in, brother. Let's go. Hey, my friends, welcome back to Home Service Business Success. I'm a host of yours, Kenny Chapman, along with my co-host, Chris Crew. Super pumped.
What's up, folks? Good to be here.
Yeah, man. So today, episode 3, we've been getting a couple of these down and getting to connect with our audience and our friends and our members and our non-members and just the industry as a whole. We've spent a couple weeks kind of table setting and talking about leads a little deeper last week. This week, let's go a little further with, generating leads and how do we kind of bring some magic to marketing. Marketing has this kind of cliche of this, it's almost like this whisper in the wind, and there's some, kind of thing where I know when you talk, and you're one of the best marketers I know, or marketing minds, I should say, that I know. And, you have this way of kind of thinking about like, here's what it is, but let's bring magic. And sometimes some of that magic is fundamentals and consistency, but let's go on a journey with our listeners and the people watching today.
First question is, I'm going to ask you, Kenny, do you truly believe in magic?
I do, believe it or not. I believe in miracles. I believe that it's magic that you and I are sitting here having this conversation and people are all over the world listening or watching. How can you argue that magic doesn't exist?
So the most magical place on earth is about 2 hours away from where I live. And when I think about magic and the most magical place, it's actually not magic at all. It's just a well thought out process.
Yes.
And then it's executed on very well.
Correct.
So let me repeat that. The magic to marketing is a well thought out process, and then somebody executes on it. And so how well you put the process together and how well you execute on it is whether or not it looks very magical on the front end or not. And oftentimes we think about it, like a David Copperfield. I go back to some of that magic. That stuff was insane, man, making airplanes disappear.
Right. But think about what you just said. Like, I mean, I didn't know you were going to talk about Disney, but how about that? The most magical place on earth, that's a USP. That's marketing. But to your point, if I walk through the gates for a family of 4 taking out a loan to go there now with their price point, I just read a column this week about like, it's not the most magical place on earth, it's the most expensive place on earth or something like that. But if I walk through the gates and there's dirt everywhere and there's trash on the ground, it's not going to feel super magical, right? So it is that, how you tie that together with the entire plan and the entire process.
Yeah. And I keep this USB drive at my desk. It's actually is a bullet. It's somebody gave this to me a long time ago, and they said there is no silver bullet to marketing. It just doesn't exist. There's no silver bullet. And on the side, this little note says, "I am the magic bullet." Yeah. And I want you to remember this right now. You are the magic to the marketing. It's you.
So true. Yes.
It's 100% you. And so today, when we look at really diving into additional strategies that are going to change your lead generation, you want to be looking at how do we create it to be a scalable process. So today, Kenny and myself will be doing a little bit of walk down memory lane and things in my business that really created freedom, and that business continues on today. Even in my absence, I sold the business, and they're doing a great job of growing that business and growing that brand. But before we jump into the magic today, I just want to recap a little bit from last episode. We talked about no leads, no problem. And we said no leads. Yeah, that is a problem.
Yeah,
but let's show you how to turn that into not having problems. And it was really about understanding what works, what doesn't work, having a plan, tracking and measuring the plan.
Yes.
And then from there, making adjustments. So have a plan, execute it, make adjustments. There is no set it and forget it. So when we look at that, Kenny, one of the things we talked about was looking at existing customer revenue, new customer revenue, looking at revenue by zip code. We started asking, go look at the numbers. And I'm going to say this. I've heard people say this all the time, Kenny, and I'm on a little bit of a high horse today. Know your numbers. But I want to kind of put a little different perspective on that. Knowing your numbers doesn't mean remembering your numbers. If you were asking me numbers about my business from 2017, there's things I will remember and things I won't remember. Knowing your number is simply put as you have access to the number and you regularly look at it. Whether you remember it or not, you're making the adjustments, right? You're looking at the numbers and making the adjustments. So let's dive in. Kenny, you want to go 2 feet on this one, or you want to go head first? How you want to do this one?
I'm like, let's do a double axle backflip and let's go head first right in, brother. Let's go.
Hold on. Before we go there, we've got to recall a story here. I recall of a story where you and I were on a catamaran with our lovely wives and enjoying some time together. And I'll never forget, that guy rolled up to the coast and said, "We're going to go to that beach out there." And I said, "Can I swim?" He was like, "Sure." I jumped in head first that time. And about halfway through that swim, I thought, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it to the coast. I'm going to drown right here, right where we're at. My friends and loved ones are going to watch me sink to the bottom here. And I'm a good swimmer, by the way. How are you feeling when you did that?
Oh my God. What's so funny? We were off the coast of Tamarindo in Costa Rica, ladies and gentlemen, and Chris did that. And Chris has a boat and he spends a lot of time on the water. I don't. I'm landlocked in Arizona and I've got a place in California, but I don't get on the water much. So I'm like, I'm going to swim it too. So I jump in and the ladies are like, we're waiting to get in the boat and we're going to come out with the captain. And so I get about halfway there. Of course, Chris is already ahead of me. And I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm going to make it. And I remember popping my head up and you were already on the beach and you're looking back. And I remember coming out of the water. You're like, man, that was tough. Like, I won't put words in your mouth. Like, I'm like, oh my God, dude, I didn't know if I was going to make it. And the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, there's lessons for around business everywhere. That's how it is sometimes when you're marketing. You go in head first and you're like, my gosh, so where's this lead flow at and what's going on? And sometimes it's a struggle, but when you stay consistent, ultimately you're going to get there. And hey, as the story goes, we lived to talk about it, fortunately, and we didn't end up dead off the coast of Costa Rica. And we get to have episode 3 with you here today.
That boy from Ohio failed to tell me that the water that I jumped into and swam in was known to have tiger sharks in it. And I'm not really sure why he told me that after the fact.
After the fact.
He said, "Oh, by the way, they're not that bad right here. They're bad around that ledge over there. We stopped
On that
swimming
other
over
side,
there."
you don't want to swim over there. Like, oh,
Yeah.
great. Thanks, bro.
Lest we digress, let's get back on track. I know everybody's not here to hear our stories, but once again, to your point, it's like that was a lesson to learn that, sometimes when you commit, it's sink or swim. And when it's sink or swim and things gotta happen, and obviously that was a life and death situation for me, whether or not I sink to the bottom or make it to the shore. I had to dig deep.
Yes.
And you'll be surprised how deep you can dig when you need to.
That's right.
And I'll just throw that out there. So when we start looking at the magic of marketing, when I look at magic is really an optical illusion. It's a sleight of hand. It's a trick on the mind. And so when we look at marketing, how do we make it appear to be something that maybe it's not? And that's the magic behind it. So it's not really that complex. It's not, most of it's numbers. It's all numbers.
Right.
And so when we understand the numbers, we're able to make it do what we need to do. So I want to jump right in on paid ads right now. in a world where right now social media, you listen to anybody that's in the marketing world and they're going to tell you that social media is still the most undervalued marketing channel there is. Just simply. Which one, Chris? Well, I'm going to say this to you. You got to test it. That's what you got to do. You got to understand it, but don't just go into it going, oh, Chris and Kenny said that we need to do social media marketing. Well, what does social media marketing really look like? Well, there's a difference between organic versus running ads, creating followers versus creating conversions. And so when you look at that on social media, it depends on which one you're trying to do. But more importantly, I'm a big fan of both. Right.
Yeah.
You've gotta create the interaction and the followers, but you also got to create the conversions. In addition to that, the organic stuff.
Yes.
I heard somebody say this one time. Quantity has a quality all of its own.
Yeah.
Because when you put out content, everybody's trying to make sure the content's so perfect and everything looks just right. On brand versus off brand. Like here's what we don't know. What hits and goes viral, what hits and gets shared. And so when we're looking at content marketing, sometimes good content gets shared over and over. And somebody said this, one piece of content that gets shared is almost impossible to get the weight out of that you couldn't buy it, because when people are sharing, it's organic,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not like I paid somebody. And we're coming out of a world right now where influencers were a big deal in social media, and people tried to get famous people, and so now what we found is you can get famous on TikTok now and have tons of followers, create tons of followers by creating tons of great content. And so when you can put out good content, you might find somebody that finds that, gets it in the hand of an influencer, and things like this can just take off. So one of the keys here on paid marketing, paid ads, is make sure that your paid ads are going after, if you can demographically define that, it's going to the right demographics. Or I'm going to shift gears now. I'm going to talk about Google. And I may stand corrected on this one. I believe that Google and pay-per-click ads are going to become the yellow pages of marketing as we know it today. I'm not saying it won't change. I'm just saying as we know it today. Let's go back to 2008. It was literally the lowest cost customer you could buy was through pay-per-click.
Right. Yep.
Once people started figuring it out, it's a bidding war, and now the person with the most money wins if they're willing to spend the money on the leads.
Right.
That's got to level out.
Yeah.
That program can't continue to run at the pace that it's at. It just can't. So when you're looking at your business, just always be thinking about paid ads with Google. Your GMB is always going to be a staple, but in walks AI.
Right.
And this is not going to be a podcast on AI. I'm not, Kenny, I don't have any strong feelings to believe that I'm right in this, but as I step back and pay attention, I've heard other experts allude to this, that websites and things of that nature will always remain important, and probably more important when AI gets here than ever before, because AI is a collaborator to everything on the internet, where it would take hours, hours to pull together data collectively, that with one search on an AI platform brings something up. Show me the best electrician near me right now.
Yeah.
And then it's going to pull from all this stuff and put reviews are important. SEO is important.
Yep.
Your GMB is important. Pictures are important. I mean, all this stuff that we've been talking all this
Everything we've
time
been talking about for years. Yes.
is now going to collaborate and pull together. And so, I'm going to say this, now your business, it doesn't need to be, necessarily Google optimized. It's going to have to be AI optimized, whatever that means in the future. Voice search, like all of these things that are coming to it. At the end of the day, here's what you need to know. If you're not the expert, you better make sure you find the expert. In other words, don't try to know all of the answers to paid ads, running your own Google ads, running your own LSA, running your own. And in many cases, you can do it, but other companies may be better and more efficient at it.
What do you see? Like, I think, I know we've got strategy to share today, but as you're talking through this, I think about the platforms are always going to evolve and change. And we've talked about, there was a time that, you run some in my market, run some billboards, run some radio, and dominate the yellow pages, and skip to the loo, whatever. I don't know what skip to the loo means, but you're happy, right? And so now, as things have evolved and changed, and I believe that we're never going to see it change as slowly as it is now. And now let me say that freaks some of you out, because the speed of change is happening faster and faster. So the mindset mastery guy inside of me that I focus on in life is adapting and adopting to this change. And obviously I wrote the 6 dimensions of change originally in 2009. And then I released 2.0 in 2018, 2019, 2020, whenever that was. But my point is, Chris, as you see, you work with a lot of clients in the home service space, and you've got, we have our team of coaches that you're ultimately responsible for. You don't manage them now, but where is the resistance of me as an operator going, okay, I've got to know enough about the platforms to, have this outside partner that's going to do some things, but it's not just set it and forget it. And, oh, SEO's dead. SEO's never going to matter. And yet SEO might be one of the most powerful components to AI making its move. And when Chris says AI came and knocked on the door, I'll say AI came and kicked the door in. They might have ripped the front of the house off, and you're just not even aware of it yet because of how powerful the large language models are impacting information exchange. And at the end of the day, marketing is an exchange of information. I have something I want to tell you about me, and we form it as marketing, right? And so even if you talked about Coke an episode or two ago, and it's like, Coke wants me to know that red is its color, to the point that it's going to, create the modern day Kris Kringle, because Coke was, and I won't get into all that. That's a debatable comment, but that's how powerful marketing is. And when you see clients that are resistant to change, or so stuck in frustration and resistance that it is changing, are you seeing it? Like, I'm seeing it with the clients I work with, and I don't work, primarily in the home service space specifically now, as far as, I shouldn't say that. I don't work in the tactical side. I work with, operators and owners of home service businesses, but I see so much pain from resisting. Like, guess what? It's not going away. I don't care if you hate Elon Musk and Sam Altman and all of them rolled together. It's here, whether it's this version or not. How do we handle this moving forward in the home service space, bro?
Become educated. That's the first thing, because a lack of education is what we would often refer to as ignorance. And when we're ignorant to things, and I don't mean that in a negative way, when you're not educated to things, you don't understand them, you're typically going to resist them. It's just the way that things are. I resist things I don't understand. It's no different than if we're sitting at a kitchen table and I'm trying to, make a sales presentation, and I'm presenting something that's foreign to someone and I can't help them understand it. They're not going to buy it. And so owners, operators, general managers, this is your message. Just get educated and be careful where you get education from, and make sure that it's not biased. By the way, computer learning has been around for 30 plus years. It's not new. We just call it AI today. It's always been around. It's always been since, when I say always been around, that's not a true statement. the truest of that statement is it's been around a lot longer than people recognize. It's just kind of been going on in the background and hasn't been brought to the public in the form that we see it today as.
Just like what happened with the internet. Same thing with the internet back in the day. Exactly.
The World Wide Web existed long before it launched to the public.
Right.
Like it's one of those things where we as human beings, we as owners and operators in the service industry and service business only recognize things in our industry, and where there's people that are outside of our industry that are moving into our industry, it's only going to improve who we are and what we do. It's going to disrupt some of you that are old and set in your ways. And I don't mean that in a bad way. That there's a lot of value to being set in your ways, but it's going to come with some disadvantages as well, which is you don't embrace new things, you don't advance, and you're not nimble to try new things. And so, best advice: don't get so wound up. Go get educated.
Got it. Love it.
Just go learn. And once again, important: don't learn it from somebody who doesn't like it, and don't learn it from somebody who that's what they do for a living. Learn it from somebody who's unbiased.
Powerful.
So now think about this. More important now, like local platforms around, next doors and call it whatever, Thumbtack. I mean, these apps are going to keep popping up. Lead sources are going to keep finding other ways to drive paid ads. You see it through music subscriptions today through the likes of a Pandora, that music at YouTube. It's literally anywhere there's a screen that eyeballs can look at, or a speaker that earballs can listen to. There's always going to be paid ads.
Yeah.
Now
it's the attention. We're in the attention economy now, right? Where there's attention, there will be ads.
And Kenny, I don't like ads. I'm in a world where I'm like, if I can listen to my music without ads, I'll do that. I know I have to pay for it. I want to watch TV without ads. And y'all are like, hold on, Chris, you're making that even more difficult. I'm the average consumer. So what's happening is paid ads are getting harder to find consumers, because this is not conventional marketing anymore. We're not in the world where you can throw on channel 2 and dominate the news and win the day, because somebody can be watching channel 2 on a streaming service and cut out all commercials. And so now but I want to say this now you've got this is what separates the magic from the not so magic. And when we look at, let me back up just for a minute, Kenny, and I just want to kind of talk through this, because I know that we've went on a couple different directions. And by the way, if you've never heard me and Kenny, we can take hard lefts when we're on the highway, and we'll be out in the middle of a field somewhere where there's not even a road. Don't worry, we'll get back on the interstate. This is my version of getting back.
Find our way back.
This is my version of getting back on the interstate right here. I go back to operating. And we said this in the last episode. We talked about having a plan, having a budget. There was a certain part of my budget, Kenny, that I allocated for testing. Like, example, I'm going to spend, let's just call it 14% in marketing. Well, 12% is already allocated. The other 2 I've got for testing, so that I can find new avenues to catch people. As a smaller company, I did the lower cost, more customer acquisition, call to action, coupons, things like that. And that helped my business to be able to grow. One of the things I always ask from any vendor when they would come in and position their product in front of me is I ask these couple of questions. I want you to remember these questions. Number 1, how long will it take me to get the results that you're telling me that I'm going to get? 4 months, 3 months, 1 month, whenever that is. Okay. Next question. At what point will I have diminishing returns on the money that I spend with you? In other words, today, if the contract and what you deliver is $1,000, at what point will my max out in this marketing avenue before you say, you know what, Chris, once you spend 3,000, anything over that's just going to be a waste of money. We don't have, when I go back to some of my share magazine mailers, I did, contracts where I'm running the ad on the inside, but then I had it to where, I got front cover, I got back cover, I got front cover and back cover, I got middle spread. I would do these things. But there is a point of diminishing return there.
Yeah. Right.
And so I always ask the vendor, what's my diminishing return? Because now what I'm doing is I'm going, okay, I'm diversifying my marketing into the point where I say, okay, great. It's $1,000. You're telling me 4 months. And by the way, here's your little nugget that salespeople don't want me to tell marketing vendors. Then great. Now, when you look at the marketing contract and they tell you that it's a 12-month contract, you just simply ask the question. All I'm asking you is, you're telling me that in 4 months, I'm going to see these results. And if after 4 months, I don't see these results, I want to weigh out.
Yep.
So I need that to get written into the contract after 4. And I don't tell them that on the front end. I tell them that on the back end. Hey, happy to sign this. This all makes sense. Let's move forward. But now, Kenny, if I'm at $1,000 and I know that I could spend another 2,000 and get me to 3,000, I don't necessarily double down on that right now.
Right.
I let that run. Yeah. And then I start finding something else that I can explore to find out something else that works. But I know this starts working. I can now allocate more dollars back to that to drive more calls. So when we look at paying for those ads, paying for the subscriptions, paying for anything, everything is about understanding what should I get and what's the expectation I should have around this product. Now I'll move into away from paid ads, and let's move over into, and by the way, for those that are out there, as you're listening, I want you to make note of this or watching. Continue to keep track of the results. And at the end of the day, I'm going to say this around paid ads and internet marketers. I love them. Stephen Christopher is probably one of the best guys I've ever met when it comes to internet marketing. Just got a heart of gold, good dude. And even he and I talk about this. At the end of the day, when you're looking at paid ads, the advertiser is trying to show you that your costs for your leads, they keep decreasing. And while that may be good, keep your eye on volume as well. Because 2 leads at $2 versus 30 leads at $10 a piece, I would rather have the 30 leads at $10 a piece than the 2 leads at $2.
All day.
Volume is important. It's not the only, but volume is important. So make sure that you also keep track of that as well. So now move over to, let's kind of talk a little bit about SEO, content marketing. It's not going away. Blogs, continue to put stuff on social media. There's actually companies out there today that can create your own curated content for you. In fact, Kenny, there's platforms out there that will take a video for your company. If you're good at video, you can do video, upload your video to this platform. It'll create you the best content marketing out of a longer video, create smaller, and it knows the platforms. It'll create the post for you. It'll do the auto-generated subtitles. You have the ability, tons of flexibility out there to do this and run with that. Name of the platform, go check it out. The name of it's called Vizard, not Visyard, Vizard. And that's a great platform for social media content, and it'll decrease the workload that one person needs to do to be able to do that. And once again, crank content out. As we said, you don't know what piece goes viral.
Right.
In fact, Kenny, it's always funny when I watch things like memes. How do memes go viral? Somebody just starts posting some random stuff. Nobody sits down with a drawing board and is like, what can we do that will go viral?
Right.
What can we make and create? They just crank out stuff and things get shared over the time and things of that nature. So the other thing I'm gonna recommend when it comes to really magic of marketing is a lot of companies got away from being involved in the local community.
Oh man, huge.
They got away from it because it's work.
Yeah.
And it takes time. One of our clients, Kenny, actually has somebody that's in charge of community outreach. That is their 100% full-time job. And they do very well at driving their brand.
They do.
And because of that, don't overlook. And so here's what people think community involvement means: home shows.
Right.
That's not a community event. Community sponsored events, golf outings. How about this? Giving back, little league sponsor. I mean, I sponsored several football teams in town, And when my company logo is up there as proud sponsor of Lakewood Ranch High School football, which, by the way, demographics was my customer, and those people are like, whoa, these people are supporting our kids and our football team. Maybe that's the people I want to call. Why? Because people want you to give back. And as you give back, they give back. And it's this cool circle of
Yeah.
community involvement. Sorry, I'm getting pretty
I love it.
elevated here, but community involvement is, I mean, getting your team together for toy drives, I can keep going on and on and on, right? Any thoughts on that, Kenny?
Well, I think it's, there's a time when you talk about law of diminishing returns. I think where we're at in a shift, and his name escapes me now. I read a book recently by a gentleman, Peter Zion, that wrote The Next 100 Years, and he's predicted a lot of stuff over the years and different things, and he feels that AI is going to make its run, and social media is going to shift a lot toward the end of the decade. And so the reason that I bring that up is, when Chris is talking about, hey, if you're good on video, and I just heard over the airwaves how many of you cringed and maybe cursed at the radio or your AirPods or whatever, your Bose, or your Beats, whatever you're listening to or watching us. I don't want to do video, Chris. Well, cool. That's fine. That's a conscious choice. But when Chris said, I don't want you to be ignorant to it, think about that word. I study the brain, I study languaging and communication. The root of ignorance is to ignore. We use it as though I don't know something, but the word actually comes from ignoring something. And that's where you get in trouble when it comes to marketing and growing and changing and evolving with the times and the platforms and the different things. I don't want to do video, Kenny. Great. Then don't do video. But there's a cause and an effect. And when you tap into your team, to your point of, our clients that crush it in local community stuff, they're not the ones that are like, hey, I want to go do this or whatever. You find people that are appointed. You might have somebody that makes YouTube videos for fun that's also a technician of yours, and you don't even know their talent, their unique ability. And so it's about like really getting congruency through the organization and helping people feel, connected. And it's just really about that to me, where there's so many areas. And I think, to your point, like when we're testing, when we're tracking, when we're knowing things, and, I said it in a previous episode, where boring is brilliant. And when we're talking about magic, we're trying to make it boring, where it just continues to produce a result. I'm testing, it's producing a result. It might not produce the result I want, but if I don't get the result I want, then I got a result that now I can go make a shift and make a change and continue to go with.
Which goes back to offers, right? Making offers that I can shift when, it doesn't make sense to run this offer all season long. But I'm a big fan of when this sounds silly. I'm gonna give you a couple little nuggets right here on your website. Call now instead of just the telephone number. Humans are like sheep. They need to be told what to do, even though we know, oh, well, there's the telephone number. There's something about the subliminal message of call now. When we look at creating a sense of urgency with our offers, limited time, limited quantity, be thinking about that. When you're also making your offers in your marketing, be careful not to do things like 10% off, 5% off, 20% off. Hell, it could be 90% off. I don't know what the cost is, so I don't know what 90%. It sounds like a pretty good deal, but I don't know what 10% cost. However, when you can tell me things like $25 off, $100 off, $65, like whatever, like give me a number instead of a percentage in that, and start making offers that are irresistible to customers to call. And in many cases, people talk about, I would never build a business that had lost leaders in it. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to do that. You don't have to, but it is a good way to make irresistible offers and not making sometimes. I heard somebody say this, Kenny. Your give has to be greater than your ask.
Yes, exactly.
And so when you look at your marketing, is what you're giving greater than the ask that you're making of your consumer? And for me, Kenny, once a quarter I would refresh my content, like my look, my mailers, everything of that. It would change it a little bit, change my offers, and test it. This is the important part. Test it. And do yourself a favor. You've got a friend in the market. You got a colleague in the market, but they're somewhere else and they're having great results with something. Make sure that when you bring it in-house and you decide to do it, that you don't just plug and play. Ask yourself a few questions about it. And I'm not saying tinker with the magic. Don't tinker with the machine.
Right.
But fully understand what this means for your business and understand that, oh, in my market, we don't use the picture. I gave this example. I was just doing an interview yesterday of a direct mail piece. I'm in the Sarasota market, in one of the markets operated in. A picture of a house in the mountains made no sense to be marketing with.
Right.
Right. Make sure images and things like that are important. I've also found as well that your brand, while it may be important, having pictures of people is important, because people don't necessarily do business with a brand. They do business with people. And so the more people interaction you can have in your marketing, the better you're off. Also be thinking about this. Speak to your customers through your messaging in a way that makes them feel valued, right? Understanding that, an example, as an electric, we know it can be frustrating when you're living without lights. Don't worry, we're here to help.
Yes.
Right. And so when you look at your marketing, be very, very kind to them, because your give is greater than your ask. And, once again, I'm going to go back as we start to put a bow on this and track, and then go back. Hey, by the way, this worked well. We need to invest a little bit more here. That way you don't just throw down a bunch of money. And for those that are out there right now, listening, watching, as a part of it right now, I'm not saying that radio and TV is it, but I'm saying when radio and TV is it, make sure that when you go into radio and TV contracts, that you understand that those are more long-term marketing strategies, unless you're going to say, hey, we're going to be doing this community involvement at XYZ, come out, we're giving away XYZ. And so now limited time, limited quantity. In this time frame, I may hammer those radio commercials for the next 2 or 3 months and not do radio again. That's fine.
Yeah.
I found a lot of value, Kenny, in sponsoring weather, sponsoring traffic, and things of those nature, where you can get brand mentioning for little to no cost. A lot of times people, once they get them, they hang on to those forever. And it might sound like something like this. A weather report brought to you by the Blue Collar Success Group, accelerating the path of success for home service companies since 2011. That might be an example of a radio tag that you use. Yep. And the same would be true to purchase traffic, radio, and then you can still run your other commercials as well. And this is a good strategy, low cost. I've got some strategies around billboards. That's another strategy that's more of a long-term. Just be careful that you don't get sold into something that you can't get out of. And we gave you strategies earlier to make sure you write that into the tracking.
Yes.
Into the contract, to make sure that you don't get caught in a situation where you're stuck going, I can't get out of this thing.
And it goes back to just, the overall having your plan, having your budget, knowing what you're attempting to do. Some of you, it's not about a 10%, 12%, 14%. That's going to be based by company, by goal, all the way back to episode 1 when we were talking about your race. Like how much should I spend, Chris? How much, how fast? All of that goes into the overall budget. We just want you to know you are in control. Don't be ignorant to the things that are coming. Be cautious who you choose to teach you, because to Chris's point, a lot of times, there's, and it's not that people are bad people, but they have an angle and a reason. And so our angle and reason here, would we love you to become a Blue Collar Success Group client? Of course we would. but our bigger give is bigger than the ask. And that is, we just want you to succeed in your own home service company. That's why we're doing this podcast. We hope it's resonating with you. Stay with us. We're learning. We've never done this together, ladies and gentlemen. We've been on camera a ton. We've run all kinds of Zoom meetings for our clients. We've never podcasted together. We're figuring it out as we go. I hope you're enjoying the ride. Episode 3. Chris, thanks so much for riding along. We'll be back shortly with episode 4. We're going to start talking sales. We're going to start talking top line revenue, and we're going to grow your business alongside you. Okay. We'll see you soon, everybody. Thank you.
Take care.